Okay, we are live now. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the fourth webinar of Amazon Smbhav Hackathon Season 2. Thank you very much for taking time on a weekend afternoon. Topic of today's webinar will be Essential Guide to Product Design. My name is Prakash. I'm a co-founder at Skillenza. I'll be your host for the final webinar of Amazon Smbhav Hackathon Season 2. Before we move on, I would like to give a quick intro about what Smbhav Conference is. The hackathon is part of annual Smbhav conference, which is held virtually again this year with a broad theme Pragati, which means progress. And focus of this conference is around startup enablement, small business digitization, exports, innovation, skilling, and job creation. I'll touch upon a little bit what Smbhav Hackathon Season 2 brings in. Just like last year, this year as well, it's pretty huge. Last year we had 20,000 registration. This year we are targeting more. The objective of this hackathon is to build for India. And as Amazon Smbhav Hackathon, the name says, Smbhav means possible. And this hackathon is here to provide a platform for all the participants by making it possible to build innovative solutions for India. Today's hackathon, we have with us Ganesh. Ganesh Balkumar, he's a solution architect at AWS. He's here to guide all the participants while they plan to build the products around hackathon themes. His experience with startups, cloud technologies, and how to scale using AWS would be very, very helpful. I would not take much of your time here. I would directly invite Ganesh to take it over from here. And at the end of the session, we'll take Q&A. Over to you, Ganesh.
Hey, thanks a lot, Prakash. Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. So my name is Ganesh Balkumar. I'm a solutions architect at AWS. And as a solutions architect, I've had the opportunity to work very closely with customers of all shapes and sizes, taking ideas from concept stage to a production-ready product that the customer is running their business with. And as part of this journey, I mean, I've learned a lot. And today I'll be sharing some of the concepts that I have kind of found very useful when working with customers. And basically, when we kind of encounter an idea, right? How do we take it to the next step, and how does the journey look like from the germination of the product right to getting it in the hands of the end users? So with this, I wanted to start off with a quick concept that is very deeply embedded in Amazon culture. Now, again, you must have heard of something called working backwards method. So this is a framework that is very widely used at Amazon, where we kind of work backwards from a customer's problem, like keep this customer at the center of the universe and work from there to solve the problem, and then identify what are the pain points, what are the benefits to the user, and then arrive at a solution. Now, of course, working backwards is widely used at Amazon, but if you look at the industry, there are a lot of different methods, and some of them you may already have used, you may have come across, you may have read about it. So some of them would be like something like customer journey map, right, where you look at all the steps that our customers will go through in engaging with you or your product. Then there's something called North Star framework, where you keep some kind of a metric or a goal at the center. That is the North Star. So let's take an example, right? This might be something like revenue per user, right? So your revenue per user would depend on the number of active users. So now you will take a look at the number of active users and see, okay, the number of active user metric depends on number of signups or number of repeat visitors. So that kind of gives you an idea, right? You go peel it layer by layer, and then you will arrive at something which will help you address the North Star, optimize the North Star, and reach there. Then there are other methods like job to be done, a lot of different frameworks. But today I'll be talking a little more about working backwards, since this method has been really popular, and some of the greatest innovations by Amazon, right? You look at Amazon Go, Amazon Kindle, a lot of retail innovations have actually come about by the working backwards principle. So, like I said, right? I mean, even like the name also says, you put the customer at the center of the universe, and you first ask like, who's my customer? Because sometimes it's kind of a little bit difficult, right? Like to identify who are you really building a product for. So there might be a large group, right? Let's just take an example like software engineers. So now building a product for software engineers is a very hard problem because I mean the software engineer term itself is very widely used, right? It might refer to someone building hardware, like firmware for hardware, and might be someone building mobile applications or web applications. So now you kind of have to narrow down and understand who your customer really is. Now, when you ask your question like, "Who is my customer?" You might arrive at a more narrow term. Okay, let's say front end engineers building mobile apps using React. So this might be your customer. You've defined it at a very granular level, so you know that exactly uh, what their day-to-day activities will be like and what will be their problems. So identifying that is kind of the first step. Understand the user, find out what is their problem they are facing, and then you'll have to see, okay, forget about the steps, right? Look at what will be the outcome, what will be the important benefit once they adopt your product or solution. So what is the biggest problem they are looking to solve? Again, like products or services would be secondary. The first thing is actually what problem are you solving for them. So once you have identified the core pain points, that will automatically lead you to the problem. You define the problem, and then from there you see how, for example, like how do you solve the problem for the customer. So let's just take an example of Amazon Go. So now the customers, they kind of hate waiting in queues, like for billing and payments when they're done shopping. So now, what is the best way that the problem can be solved? The best way it can be solved is by eliminating the checkout process from physical stores. So that's exactly what Amazon Go did. And from there, we worked backwards. Okay, how can we eliminate the checkout process? So these are like some of the thought process that I would encourage all of you to use. See, like what is the most important benefit you can bring that can solve the problem or eliminate it, or maybe reduce it to maybe just just a minor thing for the customers, and they will love this. Um, Now, once that is done, you kind of obviously, since you've put the customer at the center, you'll have to talk to them, work with them, understand, observe them, and then with working backwards principle, right? We start from the end in mind. Now, there's certain things like, for example, press release, FAQ, visuals. So we kind of write a press release, assuming that the solution is already built, the product is already built. So you kind of go through that process, mental process, and see how will a press release look like once your product is already in the market. Again, this is for your own activity. So this is, once you put down these things in writing, right, it will clear a lot of concepts in your mind. You will understand the customer better, you will understand the problem better, and thereby your solution that you will arrive at will be closely linked to the customer's needs. Okay, and then again, working backwards is not a one-time process. So every iteration, every interaction, every new information that is uncovered will kind of go back into this loop, and it's an iterative. So you kind of do a version one, version two, and then finally you will have a very good idea of what the end product should look like, right? So with that, I'll just kind of show you some of the questions that we ask, and you can adapt this when you work on the ideas for hackathon to identify how to scope the product, what problem it should solve, and what benefit should it bring to your end customers. Now, one of the important thing here is sometimes it's kind of uh, I mean, it's very easy to go wrong, or it's very easy to get caught in minor details, right? So for that, we use something called triple loop learning. So at every step, at every stage, you're going to continuously you're going to ask yourself, your team members, everyone, like, are we solving the right problem? And if yes, what is the best solution to the problem? And then you'll have to define what you mean by best. So this will again keep you on track. You validate your ideas. If your idea changes, it will be driven by these kind of introspective questions. And then you go with like once the problem statement is defined, right, you go into the solution phase where you said, okay, I know the end, but what are the means to the end? So that is what the solution designing phase, where you need to keep asking these questions. Okay, how do we create it, and how do we create it in the best way? So there might be some requirements where, let's just take an example, right? You might be building a payments product for someone in the transportation industry. All right. Now, like for example, drivers or that kind of target audience, you're building some solution for. Now, once you've kind of gone through understanding their problem, building a solution, uh, just seeing, right, how will they use your product day to day? Are they really benefiting? What are the edge cases? What are the corner cases? What are the failure modes? Once you've kind of done that, when you build the solution, you will have all these things in mind. So the triple loop learning is basically just to keep validating at every step to make sure you're on path to meet your vision. Okay. Otherwise, it happens a lot of times, right? We start off with a certain things in mind. A lot of things change along the way. We get sidetracked, we get distracted, or maybe external factors change, right? Maybe something in the market has changed where your solution that you had thought of, your vision that you had, maybe that may have been rendered not very useful. So it needs to be very uh, quick, tight feedback loop where your team and you keep discussing these things. Now, once you kind of started on this journey, right, you reach a stage where you kind of move from the problem space into the solution space. So you've done the business impact, you've done the customer goals, you've done the pain point analysis. You you know what benefit your solution will bring. You know it very clearly. It is written down. Okay, and then from there you transition into the solution space. So this is where, like I said, right, once you know your vision that you want to achieve, like this solution space will be more about how to achieve that, the how of it. So like what are the capabilities that your product will need? Does it need to interact via mobile devices that end users will use, or is there a kiosk, or is there a desktop application, or is it a voice driven application? So these are all the things that you need to kind of go through. Will it be a geo, will it have some geo elements, right, like maybe maps, navigation? So these are a lot of different factors that you might need to kind of think and arrive at a capability matrix for your application. And then you also need to look at the customer experience and features that will immediately help bring benefits to the customer. So of course, like if you ask a customer in interviews, they will have a laundry list of items and features they want to see, right? But sometimes customer also may not know because I mean, no one has solved the problem, maybe, right? You're the first one tackling that problem. You're the first one that is trying to come up with a solution. So that is where, like, defining the customer experience, this may be like using best practice seen in the industry, and even narrowing down the list of features that you have understood will help bring immediate benefits to the customer. And then finally, interactions, like we spoke, right? All the different interaction mechanisms. uh, I mean, just as for example, like in retail, an omni-channel experience, or maybe for your payments, you will have different interaction mechanisms, right? Either point of sale or ATMs. So a lot of these things, you'll have to define the interaction points. So what I really want to convey here is you need to be very careful, and then like as you go through the process, right, you will see that slowly you're transitioning from the problem space into solution space. So knowing where you are in the journey will kind of help you make this very make that feedback loop very tight, and then you will know what to expect next, so that if needed, any course corrections can be done. So instead of flying blind, right, we are basically using a framework mechanism to keep ourselves marching towards the vision. Now, once you already have uh, expanded on the solutions, right, slowly you will reach a stage where you will kind of get into the solution building, solution planning, that kind of stage. Now, again, a lot of different tools can be used here, something like user surveys, audience polls, user interviews. So once you kind of brainstorm, right, with your end target end user, basically like whoever you're building the solution for, when you talk to them, they might kind of accept or reject your idea. So you need to have these kind of things documented. Brainstorm with the end customer representatives, brainstorm with your teammates. Again, one very important thing here is to kind of find out people who disagree with the idea. You must have heard of a lot of stories, right? So people who spoke to customers, spoke with their partners, who said like, okay, this is not possible, it should not be done this way, and then they went and did it exactly what people rejected. So finding people who do not conform to your vision is also kind of important, because sometimes it might give you a reality check, or sometimes it might help you convince yourself that, yeah, maybe the world has not understood it. I can bring a new solution, I can bring a new idea to solve this problem here. So just do that process. A lot of tools are available for user polling, audience interviews, surveys. So once you kind of done that, you will reach a stage where um, you're kind of confronted with the decision, like how should I proceed now, to bring whatever I have in mind, whatever I have in documents, whatever I have as maybe a PowerPoint slide, into some kind of a nebulous reality, right? You may not exactly know how it will look like, but you have a vague idea. So kind of just solidifying, making it more concrete. You reach a stage, and that is where you need to make a decision. Now, again, there are multiple ways it can go, right? So you might, for your use case, for your idea, you might be able to just build a storyboard, right, which walks an end user through like an end user through a journey, right? They'll do step one, step two, they'll do this interaction, there's a branching point. So you build that as storyboards. Again, a lot of open source tools that you can use here to build storyboards. And once you've kind of done that, right, the other thing would be like building wireframes, kind of to show people what is possible. So just you are basically kind of doing a simulation. So there's nothing, you've not really built any technology product. You're kind of showing the art of the possible. Okay. Now wireframes also, so Sketch, Adobe, Figma, a lot of tools that you can use. So the important thing here to know is like to what level of depth will you go. And so that's why we kind of start with let's say low fidelity wireframes. So this might be just a rough sketch, and then as you progress it, your wireframes will also progress, and eventually you will reach a stage where someone might ask you to show a working version. So that is what we call a prototype. So prototype is not like a production ready app. It's obviously, prototype is something you will run in a safe environment to show what does the success look like for this product. So as you see on top, right, I mean, a probing question survey storyboard is kind of quick to produce. You can get quick feedback, and then mistakes are also safer because you'll usually show only happy paths. Now as you go towards prototypes, right, it requires a bit of engineering effort, requires a bit of design effort, requires maybe a little bit of quality testing. So there's a bit more risk. So that's why if you maybe build a wrong prototype, by wrong I mean like which doesn't really solve the problem, right? After you build the prototype, you might uncover uh, some certain edge cases where you might have to do a lot of rework. So just make sure you go step by step, so that your mistakes are not very costly, and you're able to keep getting feedback at each step. So the typical difference we do, right, like waterfall development versus agile development. You don't want to go sequentially and then at the end realize that okay, I could have done this thing different, let's go and rework. So just make it a smooth process where you go from a generic to a bit more specific stage. Okay. Now as part of wireframes and prototypes, what we kind of really do is the first step is obviously could be something like as rough as like on a whiteboard, you're just showing what the user experience look like. So one of the best practices to use here is uh, the fidelity of the visuals that you build, right? They should be as mature as your idea. So if your idea is still nebulous, you're still figuring things out, so just keep it very quick, right? You just pull up a whiteboard or a piece of paper and start drawing these kind of visuals that I have seen, like we are seeing on screen, right? You kind of start drawing these things, and as you build on your idea by gathering inputs from different people, you will kind of move into more high fidelity wireframes. So this might require you to adopt some design tools, let's say Sketch or Figma. You kind of use these tools to build high fidelity and even like mocks of your solution. Okay. And so once you're kind of reached this step, right, where you have a good idea of what the solution, what the product will look like for in the end user's hand. So that is where you will need to decide, okay, like what is the next step. And in most cases you might require, you might think that, okay, let's do a MVP, which is a minimum viable product. So now this is, think of it like with a very first version of your application that you're going to introduce in your end users hand. So again, these end users may you may have worked with them to kind of shortlist them, and they may have agreed to give you additional products. You tell them, right, okay, this is something we are working on, this is a new product, this is a new solution, this is how we are going to solve, and they'll be happy to give feedback. And that is where you will kind of move into the planning and managing stage. So here you might kind of use tools like Jira, Trello, Asana. So basically just kind of mapping out, okay, what are the activities I need, what are the immediate features that should be there in, let's say, version 0.1. And then eventually you kind of build a roadmap, right? So have using tools like Jira, Trello will actually help you prioritize it. And then if you are working in a team, you have multiple people bringing in different skill sets, so it'll be easy for everyone to divide and share the work amongst themselves. Okay. Now once you're kind of done with that step, uh, the next step would be actually building the product. So this might be, like I said, right, version 0.1 or an alpha version of the product that you're going to maybe do a pilot with a set of end users. So this is where now we are going into the building part. Now obviously, like when you're building a product or a solution, especially on AWS or cloud, you will need someone who brings the technical skill sets. So it's again teamwork, right? Someone will have great skills in design, someone will have a knack for project management and planning, someone will be actually doing the mobile development or application development, whatever technology you chose to implement. Okay. And then someone might do the role of customer, right, where they're kind of doing a quick quality assurance on your application before putting it in the hands of the pilot customers. um, so I mean, this is where like your technical team member will need to come up with a very high level view of what are the components that will be required. So you may be building, let's say, something to do with voice recognition or speech to text. So now you need to take that capability of your product, and your technical team member will then map it to what technology can help me achieve that. Okay. So in this case, like for example, I said voice recognition, right? So they'll kind of identify, okay, if I'm using a mobile, how do I recognize voice from there? How do I send it to a server, which will then tell me what the users say, do analysis on that text. So those are the kind of services that you will identify that you can consume. So there are, another might be or data lakes or analytics, right? You it might be an IoT product that you are building for your end users, for your audience. So in that case, you will need capabilities of streaming data. You will need capabilities of real-time analytics on that data. So these are the kind of decisions that your team will obviously brainstorm about, and then have a high-level architecture view of what services will give me the ability to build that feature into my product. Okay. And after this, you will get into a bit more detail. So you will get into things like how will my architecture, how will my tech stack look like. So you might say that, okay, I will have a test environment, I will have a production environment. Test environment will be for quick iterations, and production environment will be for that is where the end users will actually use it. Then you might decide to do an API based product, right? So you will have to build API endpoints, might require authentication. Then you will have a backend that will actually do the processing and achieve the capabilities of your product. So once you kind of like go from the services to the tech stack, your team will have a clear idea of what will it take to build. So at this stage, they can give a fair estimate, right? That okay, to build this tech stack, let's say on AWS, it will take me 6 weeks of effort. So you kind of plan out, create a technical plan, create split up task between all the teammates, just see who's going to do what to achieve this at the end. Now again, as part of this hackathon, or even beyond that, right? For your product, one of the most important things here is you don't want to get bogged down into a lot of technical details. Again, like if you remember, right, we spoke about keeping the set customers, keeping the end users, keeping the users of your products at the center of the universe. So you don't want to get bogged down into too many technical details, right? Okay, like how do I deploy HTTP? How do I deploy an TLS certificate for my application, or uh, um, how do I link my domain name to my API? So these are kind of things that you should not get bogged down in. So you should be able to quickly get started. So that is where a lot of AWS services will kind of help you. And over the next a few minutes, over the next few slides, I will kind of walk you through some of the AWS services that you can use to quickly get up and running with building an application and having it live, so that you can get this into your hands of the end users as soon as possible. So the first this thing we will take up is AWS Amplify. So like I said, right, the aim is to get to market fast and get the products in the hands of your user fast. So you will typically need like a lot of pre-built components, and you don't want to think about like user login forms and authentication. You don't want to spend too much time on that. So that is where AWS Amplify comes with a lot of pre-built UI components, right? For authentication forms, for let's say maps, for contact us forms, or maybe even for like your voice recognition. Both this will be your speech to text and as well as text to speech. So Amplify comes with a lot of built-in libraries and components that you can easily get started with. And a lot of this is at the right level of abstraction for you. You don't need to know the nitty-gritties of the libraries. You can kind of just consume it at a level that will help you quickly build it. Okay. And then a lot of things like your rapid testing and iterations, right? So Amplify will kind of help you do that. You don't need to provision servers, you don't need to provision databases. So with Amplify, if you use the Amplify CLI, you can create a quick project skeleton for both web and mobile, and then start building on that. So what you did is you basically kind of reduced all your setup time. Within a couple of hours, you'll be up and running and writing code for your product. So you'll not be spending a lot of time in doing the plumbing for setting up the project. Okay. And then scale again, right? Another benefit of using Amplify is you will not you might be building a global application. So even if your application or product is not user specific, like country specific, it might be persona specific, right? You might be building a product for let's say all singers. So they might be in India, they might be in United States, they might be in UK. So you want to kind of if you're targeting by personas, so you're deploying your pilot application or product for these users will become very easy with Amplify. And also you don't need to at this stage, at the maybe pilot MVP stage, you don't need to be worried too much about of course, like security is important, but you should not get bogged down by securing your putting a lot of effort in securing your applications and things like that. So Amplify will kind of help you in that as well. It comes with all best practices, set of sane defaults to keep your application secure. So we'll kind of look into a bit more features of Amplify. So let's take a look at the full life cycle, right? So first is building the product, then testing it, and then deploying it, doing a quick validation, and then putting it in hands of your end users so that they can engage, and then you can start getting feedback from them. Okay, so that is what this kind of slide walks you through. So in the build one, you can like I said, you can with Amplify you quickly have a set of project skeletons that you can start off with, and these are available for different platforms. You might be building a Flutter app, you might be doing a React Native, you might be doing Ionic. So whatever you may be using, it integrates with a lot of these frameworks and a lot of open source libraries. It can pull in for you. So And then a lot of UI components also, like I said, is available that you can get started with. The other important thing is escape hatches, right? It may be possible that your use case may require a little more advanced work, or you might need uh, to pull in like your custom dependencies, things like that, right? So even escape hatches are possible, where you can fall down to a little lower level of technical detail, and then quickly integrate that into your application via Amplify. So a lot of like things like hooks, lifecycle hooks, those kind of things are available. The next thing is on the testing side. So once you have built your app, right, you want to quickly test. And now, like I said, right, it's good practice to have multiple environments where your developers are quickly testing. So they might break some stuff as they build new features, or they might introduce some bugs, but you don't want your end users or pilot users to be affected by that. So that is where Amplify can help you build a quick end-to-end pipeline. So you can have different environments with different configurations, and different users can have access to different environments. So Amplify will kind of orchestrate all those and make it very easy for you. And then finally, deploying these things and hosting it for your end users to access, that also Amplify can do. So you can deploy, let's say if it's a web application, right? So you can deploy it to for example, like a S3 plus CloudFront, and then integrate with other AWS services like API gateway, things like that. And if it's more of a, for example, mobile application, if you're using something like Expo, so Amplify works very well with that. So if you're building an Expo app, let's say a React Native, so you can kind of quickly build that, test it out, and then deploy it using a combination of AWS Amplify and Expo. Okay, and then finally, engaging and measuring. So once the application is out of your hands and into the hands of your end users and audience, you want to know what is happening, right? How are they using it? They may not tell you everything. So a lot of advanced analytics, measuring user behavior, actions that they take in the application, in the product, that you can kind of trigger notification, so that you can collect the data, analyze it, and then tweak your application. Okay, and so you might have to integrate with some of the other things, right? Notification channels, right? Either a push notification, email notification, SMS notification. So Amplify kind of will help that make it very easy for you. Okay, so now uh, just kind of moving on into a little more detail about what Amplify really is, right? So Amplify is like a collection of different things. So there is an Amplify libraries, like I said, libraries for different use cases. You might have a library for doing integrating maps into your applications. You might have a library for having, for example, let's say storage, right? Local storage. You are using your application in maybe um, remote field locations, rural areas, or you might be using your application in, for example, like cloud kitchens, or where there may not be reliable access, right? So things like doing offline data store, syncing it. So those are the things that Amplify libraries will help you achieve. And Amplify hosting, like I said, once everything is built, deploying it in a secure manner, so that it is if you have authentication, deploying it so that people authenticate and only then they're able to access. So those are the kind of things you can do with Amplify hosting. And uh, again, by default, it's integrated with S3 plus CloudFront. So if you choose to deploy, you will get the benefit of a CDN as well, right? So things like performance improvements, those kind of things you will get out of box with the same defaults that come as part of Amplify. All right. So there's another component called Amplify Studio. So what this Amplify Studio will really do is, um, you can go. So you have access to a studio interface. So all the activities that you will do as part of your product development, right? Defining screens, defining the data model, defining the user groups. Right? You might have different users with different permissions. So things like that, Amplify will kind of help you manage, and the entire orchestration that I spoke about, right? Moving your application through the pipeline, right? You can kind of orchestrate everything using the studio interface. Okay, and also it kind of helps you with your team collaboration as well. So you might have different team members working on different aspects of the application. So all of them can collaborate. You can create users for each of your team members in Amplify Studio, and then they can collaborate and quickly build the first versions of the product, and even beyond that, as you move through different stages, right? Alpha, beta, your Amplify Studio and the entire Amplify service will help you there. So now just talking about some of the other features that Amplify Studio will kind of bring to you, right? So I mean, a lot of UI components are already available in Amplify, but what you can also do is you can import your Figma files also into Amplify. So as part of the visualization phase, right, where you build like, let's say low fidelity to high fidelity wireframes and designs. So if you have built them in Figma with Amplify Studio, you can directly import the Figma files, and then you can quickly start building like React screens or those kind of screens with Amplify Studio. So I'll show you a little bit, maybe some more screenshots as we move on. But just wanted to highlight that it has integrations with a lot of third-party tools that you may have used in steps prior to starting building the application. Okay. So just a quick overview of all the feature categories which you might need when you build your product. So if you need analytics, authentication, local storage, and even server-side storage, right? Maybe a quick, you want to store a snippet of information that the user inputs into their mobile device. So those kind of things, generating patterns for that, right? Create operations, read operations, update operations. So with Amplify, you'll be able to do all of them. And this kind of also ties into that components, Amplify components part, right? You don't need to do the nitty-gritty heavy lifting. You use a component. For example, you use a storage component, right? So you don't need to worry about like how is Amplify storing it. In the backend, Amplify will generate code. Amplify will set up permissions to store it securely in an S3 bucket for you. Okay. So I'll just show a few screenshots which will give you an idea of how Amplify looks like. So as you start building for this hackathon and beyond, once you kind of log in, you'll be greeted with project creation. So you can create your product and also link it to a source control repository. So in this case, Amplify supports like GitHub, Bitbucket, a lot of different source controls. So if you have a project, you can link it and bring it into Amplify so that Amplify can do the deployment pipelines for you automatically. So just taking a look at another screen where you can kind of build data models, right? You have attributes of objects. So you kind of define the model, you define attributes, you define relationships all through the UI, and then Amplify will help you auto generate code so that you don't spend a lot of time in the coding phase. You can quickly have something visual to show to users and get feedback. Okay, so just another component. So you see like sync with say Figma on the top right, right? So what I did basically here is pull sync it with my Figma account, point it to a Figma file, and it was able to pull like all the different components, and you can see like a sample contractors component on screen. Okay, and there is a copy code option. So once you do a copy code, you'll be able to quickly use it. Whatever component you had defined, you can start configuring it. Okay, so yeah, so just start thinking about all the different use cases, depending on the personas who you're building for. There might be a personalization element, there might be a data and analytics element, there might be omni-channel kind of a thing, right? People accessing, having the same experience, same set of features from different devices, different mediums. So just think of that, like I said, like offline storage, machine learning, speech recognition, image recognition, computer vision. So you might encounter use cases as you expand on your idea, and you'll be able to map it to Amplify features or AWS features that will help you solve that problem. Okay. So some more use cases like predictions, text translations, right? Localization. You're building for people from different countries or different regions of countries. So with your text translation component, you'll be able to quickly introduce that capability in your product. Okay. So kind of just want to leave you with what will what will it look finally? A reference architecture that once you're kind of building the MVP. So on the left, again, this is a sample application. Your use case might be a little different, but just to kind of quickly walk you through how this will work, right? So you will have your end users using either coming from different devices, mobile, web, kiosk, or it may be like even you have integrated with Alexa, right? So they might be interacting with your product through Alexa. Your Amplify libraries will kind of help you easily authenticate users, right? All sign up, forgot password, login, detecting duplicate accounts. So with that, Cognito user pools, you can easily do that. Then AWS AppSync will help you build GraphQL APIs very quickly, and it will also give you the ability to have real-time subscriptions, offline storage in your application. Pinpoint will help you with notifications. If you want to do push notification, SMS, voice, email, Pinpoint will help you do all that. Now coming to the data stores, right? You might be like DynamoDB, Aurora Serverless. So these are data stores, like databases, where you will store, like persist all the data. So DynamoDB is again like based on key, like if you're storing key value kind of data, it will help you scale a lot. If you're looking for more of a relational database kind of a flavor, Aurora Serverless is a really good option. So if you're like, for example, you want to use a relational database like MySQL, Postgres, so Aurora Serverless would be a good choice for where until you scale, right, until you have that scale of users, your Aurora Serverless can kind of scale down, and again, you'll be able to keep your MVP and pilot cost also under control. So that was again a high level overview of what a typical product or an MVP or a pilot that you build as part of this hackathon, even after that, will look like. So now with that, I'll kind of hand it back to Prakash. Thanks a lot, everyone. Over to you, Prakash. Apologies. So I believe Prakash is on mute.
Thank you, Ganesh, for your time and insights. This was a very detailed presentation. And before we move to Q&A, a small note for everyone. If you haven't registered for the hackathon yet,
Okay, I do see some questions in the comments, so maybe I'll just take them one by one. So we have an audience member asking, I'm a backend developer. How important is design for me? Um, so again, I mean, this would be really this would really depend on like what is your specific product idea you are building. So design is obviously important to a certain extent, but maybe in a pilot or an MVP, it may not be that important. Again, you don't need to be a really good designer, but what you want to be is like a very good visual communicator. So as long as you're able to build the visualizations to convey the idea, you can always take that initial set of visualizations that you built and have a designer look at it and give you comments. So this way, uh, your inputs will still get carried over, but you will be relying on the design expertise. So design is important to a certain extent, but more important is having that visual storytelling skills.
Thanks, Ganesh, for your amazing input. Let's take the next question. Figma or Marvel, which one do you think is better? This question is from Shraddha.
Okay. Again, like I don't have a specific comment on the choice of tools because every tool has different capabilities. They come with a different philosophy, right? So I mean, there's no harm in taking both of them for a spin. I mean, both of them have a free tier, so you can maybe spend let's say an afternoon quickly trialing out both, and just go with whatever you're comfortable with. Uh, I mean, if you're starting an MVP, may not be a right. Let's say you've already used Figma, right? So if you're starting now, just go with what you know, so that you stay on track. You don't get bogged down learning a new tool, working around edge cases, trying to figure out how to achieve things there. If you know you're already familiar with a certain tool, my recommendation would be to go ahead with that. There will always be time to change, adopt a new tool later.
Great, thank you, Ganesh. Thank you so much. So we have another question by Ritinkar. He asks, "Does Amplify have phone authentication like Firebase?"
So yeah, authentication. Yeah, you do have authentication components. So if like I showed on my that architecture slide, right? So it integrates with Cognito, which is a user authentication service. So you'll be able to have drop-in components where you just tell Amplify that okay. So it's as simple as on a command line you can do Amplify add auth, give your details, like for example. How many like for example how many user groups you have, things like that you can define on the command line, and Amplify will build the authentication backend for you, and you can just drop in the UI component in your mobile app or web application, and your users will be able to do all user authentication activities, even things like forgot password, OTP based authentication. That thing is very easy to build.
So Ritinkar specifies phone authentication. So Ritinkar, is your question answered? Do you feel your question is answered, or you need a little bit more explanation from Ganesh if Ganesh wants to add something to whatever he has already mentioned?
Yes, I think he meant phone number authentication, if I'm not wrong.
Huh.
Yeah, so that
Probably
also
that.
is supported. Yeah, yeah. So maybe phone number authentication, email authentication, phone number authentication, both are possible.
Great. I guess that answers your question, Ritinkar. So we'll take the next question that is by Satish. He asks any URL for understanding on AWS Amplify hosting.
Uh, yeah, I would recommend take starting from the AWS Amplify product page. So if you just search on Google, that'll be the first result. And some of the other things you can look at is a lot of videos on YouTube. So from AWS summits, AWS reInvent. So those kind of stage events, right? The presenter would have actually shown like a demo application, maybe an airline booking application. So once you kind of go through those videos, that'll give you enough knowledge to understand what Amplify is, and then you can start diving deeper into the documentation and doing hands-on deployments in your lab account.
Great, great. So whatever first search is when you type in Amplify on Google, AWS Amplify on Google is the thing that you should be looking at, I guess, right?
Yes,
So
I would
moving
say yeah.
on.
Start from the product page. The
Yeah,
product landing page itself has links to a lot of resources, and you can go from there.
great, great. And there are quite a few explanatory videos on YouTube as well, right? Great. So let's moving on. What are the rates for the end user if it gets deployed, and different is it from Play Store?
Um, Okay, so I mean, when you reach that stage, right? Like when your let's say artifact is ready for the store, then it's a regular process that you will have to follow. So there is, I mean, that process does not change. So whatever you do for deploying to the store, Amplify will kind of help you build that artifacts. But beyond that, if you're using test flight or whatever, that process remains the same.
Great. Thank you so much, Ganesh. Hope that answers your question, Satish. So we'll wait for a couple of minutes to see if we get any more questions. Otherwise, we can wrap up the session today. Guys, please feel free to ask your questions right now. All right. Anyways, if you still have any more questions, you can definitely write to us at support@skillenza.com, and we'll be there answering your questions. And we'll get in touch with Ganesh, and he will be answering all your questions. So not to worry. This is the email ID that you can use. I'm typing it out on the comments. Please feel free to use this. Do write to us. And thank you so much, Ganesh. Thank you so much, Prakash. I see there was a technical difficulty, but yeah, that happens sometimes. So no, not an issue. Any last comments that you would want to add, Ganesh?
So thanks a lot, Skillenza team, for having me, and for the audience. I would say, like in my experience, there has been no substitute for actually getting hands-on and start building. And I mean, there's fun in the process itself, right? As you go along, you will learn. You talk to brainstorm with your teammates. You'll run into problems, and it'll be fun, like solving those challenges. So with that. I'll hand it back to the Skillenza team. And thanks a lot, everyone.
So thank you, Ganesh. But there is one more question, and seeing that we still have 9 minutes left, can we take that up? Is that okay with you?
Yeah, I mean, it's perfectly fine. We'll be happy to
Great.
take more questions.
Yeah. So Kiran asks, will we be able to automate the designing process through AWS Amplify? Let me know if there is a possibility to get a hold of that process. If there is.
So again, it would depend on like what you mean by automating the design process. But like where Amplify will help you is taking the leap from design to building your product. So a lot of boilerplate kind of things. It'll help you make it easy. So I wouldn't call it like automating the design process itself, but it'll help you transition very easily from the design phase to the building phase.
Great. Thank you, Ganesh. Hope that answers your question, Kiran. Moving on, there's another question by Satish. He asks, what are the best wireframe tools that he can use to learn from?
So my answer to tools would be the same thing I said earlier.
Yeah.
So don't get fixated on one tool. So just start off with like just do a quick search, see what are the most popular top 2 3 popular ones. Sign up for a free trial quickly if you have never worked with any of those tools. If you've already worked with those tools, just continue with that. Just stick to that tool. You may not like, at least for the hackathon or for building your product, you may not need to learn a new tool at all.
True, and I guess the free ones, especially the monthly free trial ones, should be fine for from a hackathon perspective. So that is what
Yeah,
you can start, and obviously, moving from one wireframe tool to another is not that difficult. So if you learn the basics in one, probably getting a hold of on another tool is not that difficult. Do you agree,
yeah.
Ganesh?
Yeah, I mean there's no dearth of choices. So just
True.
go, like if you stick with the top 2 3 popular ones. I mean there won't be any issues with that.
Is it design concept that matters rather than the tool itself? Won't you say?
Yeah, yeah. So like I said, right? I mean, as long as you're able to visually communicate, if the tool is not bogging you down, you're able to achieve your goals. Then well and good.
Great. So awesome. So hope that answers your question, Satish. Guys, we'll wait for 2 to 3 minutes. Ganesh, let's see. We are getting questions, so let's just wait for a couple of minutes.
Right.
Thank you, Yashodhara, for chiming in. Technology can definitely
No problem, Prakash.
put something somewhere. Anyways, so as Yashodhara mentioned, we are in the final few minutes.
Let's just
Thank
wait it out because I guess people are still thinking of questions.
Yep, yep. For those who could not join the webinar recording will be available on the Hackathon page. You can check it out.
So we got another question from Satish. He asked what to include and what not to include in appeal user. Satish, do you want to rephrase the question? It's not very clear. What do you mean? What to include and what not to appeal user in app? Probably it will be great if you could rephrase the question, Satish.
But just to answer it on on general terms, right? So this you will kind of realize during like when you build the wireframes and you have a discussion, right? Even just before the wireframes, you'll have a discussion about what capabilities are important. Just going back to the original thought, right, of keeping the end user in the center of the universe. So you will have a certain set of matrix that you think will matter really. Uh, will matter a lot to the end user. So you prioritize that first, and you start including those things in the initial versions of your app. And obviously, you can build as you get more feedback. You can build a lot more on top of those features. Basically, expand them, change them. Or even like drop features. I mean, this is very common, right? A lot of times you see that based on user feedback, or maybe if the company decided that this process is no longer supported, that feature might be dropped. So the visual look and feel. So landing page, a lot of tools are available which will help you create a landing page and get you that email subscription funnel also set up pretty quick. So you can use some of those tools. So they'll give you a landing page. They will give you, let's say, an ability for end users to input their email address. So you'll be able to build like early access list of customers, early access list of end users with those kind of tools.
Thank you, Ganesh. Thank you for your valuable input. All right. I guess we have covered most of the questions. So, whatever questions are still left, please do email us at support@skillenza.com, and we'll be happy to cover all the questions and come back to you with proper answers from Ganesh and the team. Thank you, Ganesh. I guess we'll end the broadcast now. Do you have any
Thanks a lot,
last
everyone.
words? Do you want to add anything? Anything, Prakash, you want to add?
Yeah, I would just like to say all the best, everyone. May the best ideas and solutions win.
Great.
Awesome.
Thanks a lot. Good luck, everyone.
Good luck, guys.
Thank
Bye
you, everyone.
bye.